Hello, my name is Leilani Johnson, and this week I watched two films based on the Italian Neorealism movement and the French New Wave movement. The first movie I watched, the movie based on the Neorealism movement, was called Cinema Paradiso. Released in 1988, this film, directed by Giuseppe Tornatore, is a coming-of-age story about a boy in an Italian town. I chose this movie because it has very high ratings and Roger Ebert liked it. And I like watching movies that Roger Ebert has reviewed because I like making fun of his opinion. Regardless, I usually agree with his opinion, but not always. And also, I read that the movie is bait for cinephiles, and if you're in this class, well, the story is mostly told through flashbacks as the man reflects on his childhood. Apologies, the movie synopsis is long because almost everything that happens is important. So after his father is lost during the war, Salvatore Toto de Vita is raised by his mother who is hard on him and dislikes his all-consuming passion for movies. Toto is obsessed with Cinema Paradiso, the movie theater in his town. He sneaks up to the projection room daily to bother the projectionist, Alfredo. And I'm gonna say, after reading about this movie so many times, I really wanted fettuccine Alfredo, so I'm gonna go pick it up as soon as I'm done, and this is your fault. The priest in their town screens all of the movies before the public can see them, and he demands that all scenes that generally arouse, so kissing, must be cut out of the film. Toto asks Alfredo for the cut scenes since nobody is using them. Alfredo wobbles between being annoyed at Toto and feeling sorry his mother doesn't support his passion for movies, and is generally not very nice to him, but she's trying. She really is. They have their disagreements, but eventually, Alfredo teaches Toto how to run the projector by himself, and the two form a lasting friendship. One day, the reel catches on fire, and Toto saves Alfredo's life by running into the building and dragging the old man out. The incident renders Alfredo blind, but grateful to be alive. As Toto grows up, he develops an intense crush on the girl he sees at a school named Elena. After an intensely long courting period, they finally develop a mutual affection for each other, but he loses her after her father sees them together and sends her away. Alfredo tells Toto that he needs to leave their town and never look back, never think of his friends and family again, and never, absolutely ever, visit their town. Flash forward to the present. Alfredo has died, and Toto, now a famous movie director, comes back to his hometown against his wishes to pay his respects. He discovers that nobody has visited the Cinema Paradiso in ages, and it's set to be torn down. He watches it crumble into ruins and reflects on his childhood as he sits with the gift Alfredo left for him, which is a movie made out of all the kisses that Alfredo had to cut out of the movies so long ago. This movie, while influenced by the Italian Neorealism movement, was way more optimistic than a typical Neorealism flick. Toto comes to peace with his ghosts and the life he once had. And I didn't watch a single neo-realistic film that ended on a good note. So, I found that to be very different. The movie was shot in the director's hometown of Sicily, on location, and set in the 40s when Italian neo-realism was at its peak. The main characters are also working class, and for most of the movie, the main character is a child. Said child is obsessed with movies, as were the original directors of the movement. These are all characteristics of the neorealism movement. I really liked this film. It was the first one that we watched that made me cry, and then I started choking, and that was not fun, but, it affected me, clearly. It rose to number 1 on my list as soon as the credits rolled. And that is really saying something, because I watched the first hour of the movie in a loud sushi restaurant. There were children running around and pop music playing, and I forgot my earbuds, unfortunately, so I was just playing it straight out loud, which you're thinking, wow, that sounds really awful of you. But it's okay, I know the owner, which is the douchiest thing that I've ever said. But if you're just blasting random Italian in a sushi restaurant, most people are gonna ignore it, because I wasn't blasting it. I'm really justifying this. But anyway, it's I'm kind of amazed I liked it that much, considering those circumstances. I think that the two best actors in the movie were Toto and Alfredo, boy Toto. They were integral in establishing the dominant relationship of the movie, and they excelled. Boy Toto is simultaneously wildly annoying and wildly cute, as a good child should be. And you see Alfredo's journey too, his internal struggle between wanting to bat Toto away like a fly, but inevitably embracing him as his father figure. The story was very dramatic and very long, but never slow, and we watched the short version. I thought Elena was a vastly underdeveloped character, but I understand in the director's cut we get to see a lot more of her. The actress who played Toto's mom, both old and young, I think they were brilliant. I found her to be a well-rounded character despite the lack of screen time. The only dreamlike sequence I found was that I could think of at all, and I was looking for differences between like the neorealistic movement, was when little Toto was looking at the lion's head on the wall and it comes to life via his imagination. I think that teenage Toto, imagining Elena there and then she actually is there, is more romanticized than dreamlike. So I'm not quite sure. Maybe I need to rewatch it. Sometimes I found the flashback format a little distracting because I wanted to stay within the timeline of the story, but I don't think it was a bad decision, and the movie's about coming to terms with your past, not your future. So, all in all, I give this film a 8.5 out of 10. It was very good. I really enjoyed it. The second film I watched was Amelie. It is a romantic comedy directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet, and released in 2001. I chose this movie for the same reason I chose Cinema Paradiso. Incredibly high ratings and a full 4 stars from Roger Ebert. The poster actually made me not want to watch it, but it seemed quirky enough to be right up my alley, so I gave it a go, and I'm glad I did. The movie follows a young woman named Amelie from birth. Her father is cold and distant, and her mother is shrill and crazy. She is homeschooled until her mother dies, and her father withdraws from her life even further. When she's 18, she finally leaves the house and gets a job as a waitress in Montparnasse. She grows into a very shy and lonely young woman due to a life without playmates or interaction, until she discovers a box hidden in the wall of her apartment. It is from a boy who lived in her apartment long time ago, and she's determined to find it and give it back to him. She decides that if she can accomplish this and make him happy, then she will dedicate her life to doing good deeds. This forces her to go outside of her apartment and her comfort zone and talk to her neighbors, and eventually she is successful. Using what she's learned about her neighbors, she starts to perform little deeds like playing matchmaker with her coworker and a customer, writing a letter from a long-dead lover, and stealing her father's garden gnome and taking pictures of it all over the world to show him what a better life he'd have if he took a vacation. I mean, this woman is a masterclass on passive aggression. She reminds me of my mother, but my mother would never go to such great lengths. If she forms a strong relationship with her neighbor, Raymond Dufayel, known as the Glass Man because his bones are so brittle. Amelie realizes she's falling in love with Nico, a man she crosses paths with often at the train station. He has an odd habit of scrounging around in the trash can for torn-up pictures from the photo booth and piecing them back together. She sets up multiple opportunities to meet, but can't summon up the courage to do anything but play games with him. Raymond encourages her to take a chance on love, and she finally does something for herself. This film was inspired by the French New Wave movement, and this is displayed in many ways. Characters, especially Amelie, break the fourth wall to speak directly to the audience or stare into their souls. The editing is intense. There are hundreds of jump cuts, I swear, and lots of fast, frenzied action. Fast forward. And there are also digitized special effects that New Wave artists would have definitely used if they were available at the time. The film also has a sense of humor, very New Wave of them. I loved it. I wasn't so sure about it at the beginning, but especially by the second act, it had won me over. Amelie is a wonderfully lovable character, and the narrator is hilarious. Nico is cute and weird enough to not make you question why he's playing this game with her. Raymond is an adopted father figure to Amelie in the way that Alfredo is to Toto in Cinema Paradiso. But Amelie's father isn't dead, just emotionally unavailable. The actress who played young Amelie was also perfect. She was cute and funny and full of schemes. I didn't realize at first why they included the revenge scene since it seemed so out of character for older Amelie. Then I realized it wasn't. I was referring to the scene where the young Amelie gets revenge on her neighbor by yanking the television cords out right when he's watching a very important sports match on the TV. So I was wondering why they included any of the storyline of Joseph at the cafe. Everybody's story ends happily except for any girl that crosses paths with him. Because he's a psycho, crazy, obsessive freak show. It was a fun storyline. But Joseph and Georgette were the only couple whose lives weren't improved by Amelie's meddling. Well, besides Collington the grocer, but she ruined his life intentionally to help Lucien, as she should have. The story was very lighthearted, as expected. As someone that watches movies primarily for entertainment, I can't say I minded. I feel movies are getting darker and darker these days, and when a movie is lighthearted, it's dismissed or part of the Hallmark Channel. But beautiful, well-written movies can be made as long as they're not released on the Hallmark Channel. Case in point. I thought that this story was very creative, and the visual elements gave the film real character. The film itself is as much a character as Amelie or Raymond are. The writing was very witty, my favorite part, and for the most part, the characters were severely well-rounded, particularly Amelie. Audrey Tautou was perfect for the role. I give this film a 9 out of 10. I adored it, and I would watch it again in a heartbeat.